We receive brief reports, announcements relative to Delaware County programs and projects, process of 2x2 committees, goal committees, and board staff. And as always, I will start with Supervisor Starkey.
Thank you, Chair. We had the 3-week break, so of course there was a lot going on. I attended multiple meetings regarding the opioid settlement funds and the processes this group is taking to gather information to make recommendations to the entire board. We're getting closer to conducting the journey mapping interviews, where we will be meeting with those in recovery, first responders who are treating those who are overdosing pretty much on a daily basis, and family members of those either in recovery or actively using. We're going to compile all that data to help us determine the best way to recommend that the board allocate those opioid settlement funds. I've continued to help Nick Rail with the Performing Arts Center's board to find ways to develop successful fundraising. I attended several trails meetings. Those of you who are trying to get mountain bike trails that connect communities throughout Del Norte County, as well as down the coast to Mendocino. And we submitted a request for some catalyst funds, but they also submitted a grant to the Resource Advisory Committee RAC. And I have requested that Chair Wilson appoint an alternate to the RAC so that those meetings are attended and these types of things can be discussed and then brought back forward here to the entire board. I attended a virtual webinar with regard to SB 90 and state-issued mandates. This was just a panel presentation on SB 90 mandates, both the history and the processes. And we've heard from other county experts who are working on coordinating counties to conduct test claim filings with the Commission of State Mandates. So I believe that several of us were on that call, and I'm hoping they'll expand more upon this, but it's a very important process that we're taking very seriously. I continue to work with the teen court proposal by attending multiple meetings. There is a meeting today that I'm not able to attend, but bring forward that teen court model so that we can try and come up with diversion type penalties for kids that are in kind of low-level trouble to hopefully redirect their behaviors. I met with our IT director, Dan McCorkle, to discuss some of the concerns I learned about when I attended NACO, the National Association of Counties, relative to artificial intelligence. And NACO had developed this exploratory committee and who compiled a lot of this useful data and sample policies that counties can implement and adopt to ensure we're protecting ourselves from kind of the bad part of AI while finding acceptable ways to introduce the helpful parts of the technology. So Mr. McCorkle is going to consider some work. He's got his hands pretty much full right now, but we're looking to help get some policies in place within 6 or 8 months. I attended the local behavioral health board meeting. We are recruiting to fill 2 member positions for people with lived experience. We received an update on the after-hours service that ensures that we have 24/7 coverage for people who need to contact behavioral health by telephone. And once we have our fully operational mobile unit, this too will be mandated to be 24/7 eventually. And we're hopefully that we'll be able to have that face-to-face contact with people who are experiencing mental health crises in the middle of the night. Reviewed the grand jury report, and the report highlighted a couple of our departments, and it's always important, and I know the board will have to weigh in on that grand jury report at some point. But I also read Sheriff Scott's rebuttal to it, as well as the article in the paper yesterday for probation, and I appreciate the positions that both of these leaders took. I reviewed the Ag Department's new brochure about invasive species, and Justin Riggs and the Ag Department recently completed this booklet that is going to be available to the public very soon. Vanessa over at the Ag Department did a lot of work to make this happen, and Justin said that citizen reports are an important part of our weed management program. And I posted just a teaser about the booklet on Facebook, and there is just a lot of interest in this, so I appreciate the work that went into that. I attended the Harbor Commission meeting. I noticed on their agenda they were talking about fireworks, and so I wanted to stay informed about what their process was going to be. The harbor is going to attend the fireworks discussion. I think that is scheduled for next week. But they also talked about how they want to even consider banning even legal fireworks within the harbor, and the destruction that those explosives or even the legal, safe and sane ones are doing to their infrastructure. It's melting their asphalt. There's just so much garbage left behind. And so they didn't make a decision at that meeting, but they certainly are considering, and I think that is a step that could help reduce some of the issues, but that would be up to their board to decide. I attended virtually in real time the collective bargaining training by PERB, which is the Public Employees Relation Board, and I heard loud and clear that the employees can talk directly to supervisors as long as we're not negotiating or making promises, so we can have those conversations. I reviewed the Del Norte County Planning Commission meeting. After the meeting on Wednesday night, I got a lot of text messages from members of the Planning Commission looking for feedback on their discussion. The Planning Commission has 3 newer commissioners, and they're finding their footing, trying to discover their voices. So I am hoping that we can find some money in the budget for a one-time training to send them to. I've looked in, there appears to be some training in Sonoma County in March of 2025, a little bit down the road. But that could help provide a foundation so that we're really getting these commissioners trained to the best of their ability. I spent a significant amount of time preparing for the upcoming budget workshops. Those workshops are scheduled for August 19th from 1 to 5, August 20th from 1 to 5, and August 28th from 1 to 5. And it's my intention to make sure that every department that is going to be presenting their budget has pre-questions from me. I don't want to have anybody be shocked or put on the spot, and so I am going to be preparing those questions that at least I will be asking for those department heads. And my final thing is that I began to plan a pretty major community cleanup. This is a massive undertaking, and code enforcement had connected me with members of the community who had purchased some land over off Old Mill Road that was an old encampment, and it is just so much environmental damage being done by leaving it the way it is. So on September 7th, I'm kind of putting out the word, if there are organizations or individuals or anybody that wants to come out and help with this cleanup, your help would be appreciated. We're going to provide you lunch and some, fun activities, as much fun as you can have cleaning up encampments. But I've got Mission Possible coming, the landowners will be there, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, and as many other community members that I can to come out for this worthwhile project. And that is my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Had several discussions and meetings around the senior center's current position on the ability to provide our senior nutrition program. I reported out at the last meeting that we had a budget shortfall of roughly $260,000 for this fiscal year that we're trying to figure out how to backfill to keep a program that is currently extremely important for keeping our seniors not only well fed, but out of the hospital and out of emergency services. So in doing so, we've had several meetings with the healthcare district, Humboldt Area Foundation, and others to try to fill this gap that has been presented with us through really a restriction of sorts of the community development block grant funds, which the county normally is able to go after, but wasn't essentially able to go after this fiscal year and because of timing issues. So my hope is that with the upcoming healthcare district board meeting at the end of this month, that they could see it within their purview and their budget to help support part of this, so we do not have to reduce the level of services to so many needy seniors in our community. Also attended a California State Association Insurance Working Group meeting. This is a working group that we formed to help address and add insight into processes going on in each county as this insurance crisis stretches not only throughout the state of California, but also throughout the United States. There wasn't a whole lot to add other than the fact that there is some push to have a certain amount of letters going to the governor's office right now from the various counties that, in most of our opinion, through analysis, it's not going to do much good. We're sitting under propositions that essentially restrict not only the governor and the state legislature's ability, but also insurance companies' ability to make changes that are necessary to provide the compensation, which they feel is adequate to reduce the amount of risk they have from events such as tsunamis or events such as wildfire, which is spreading across the state of California again this year. So how we get there together is going to be an interesting process. Obviously, Ricardo Lara, who's the state insurance commissioner, has moved forward under the governor's executive order last year to put processes in place that will hopefully help to reduce or alleviate some of these issues. But as we all well know, the state fair plan is becoming that insurance piece of last resort. It's becoming a piece that is completely underfunded given some events here in our state. And I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible, but it's going to be interesting to see what the state's top insurance provider, in this case State Farm, does here in the next 6 or 7 months, because that will signal to a lot of us what direction this goes. And I certainly don't want to see it to go the direction of Florida, which is a lot of small undercapitalized insurance companies. So we'll see how that all works out. Been talking a lot around Senate Bill 610. I think I brought this up in the past. I know Randy Hooper and I have talked about it quite a bit, but it's a Senate bill sponsored by State Senator Scott Wiener out of San Francisco. But it intends essentially to switch our current fire ranking system, which we have fire severity maps throughout the state of California, with a tiered system. This board and our community development department has gone through a series of analyses over the last couple of years to provide input, to this case to the Board of Forestry, to allow for a more specified ranking model based on severities within our area. It's extremely problematic process. It's based on modeling that is not scientifically well supported in some cases. In other cases, it is. But the bigger piece of this bill essentially takes this responsibility away from the California Board of Forestry and puts it in the hands of one person, in this case, the state fire marshal. And to me, that's extremely problematic. It's essentially giving all the power and authority to one individual who may be aligned politically with the insurance companies, may be aligned politically with the governor, and it presents problems for us because then we have no authority under this legislation. So my hope is based on our current legislative platform, advice from the California State Association of Counties, and also advice from the RCRC, that this board could act in a timely manner before this comes out of committee with some appropriately placed letters to Senator McGuire to help at least keep it where it's at right now, because the number of gut and amends that have occurred within this bill have completely changed its makeup. And I think this board, it's time to weigh in and maybe give staff direction to put together a well-placed letter. So I'll be requesting that at some point here soon, board, if not just right now. I will let Supervisor Short speak to SB 90. I was very appreciative that he put out the notification to the full board to attend that RCRC workshop. Supervisor Starkey talked about it a little, but I'll let Supervisor Short cover that. I was also invited by RCRC Chairman Chris Lopez to Monterey County to tour Joby Aviation, which is one of 7 companies looking into the electric vertical takeoff vehicles. I toured their facility with the idea based on a visit that we had with a Stanford University professor. One of our Japanese friends were here in April on the Google campus as ways to attract new visitors to the area, but also ways that we can provide services to people that need quick transportation to and from short distances like Medford or Eureka. Vertical takeoff vehicles that are electrically driven, in this case, this company is quite far out ahead. They're well capitalized from Toyota, Uber, and various other companies. And they start rolling their vehicles offline here next year. These will be basically commercial aircraft that require a commercial pilot's license, but they are essentially a taxi service, an Uber service. Capacity of 4 people plus your pilot. It's a unique thing, but it's also a unique thing that could potentially attract people here. And so my hope is that with the proper planning at our airport and hooking up some EV capacity out there, which these vehicles could be charged in a period of 16 or 17 minutes with a full charge off a 4,000 kV system, that with the proper planning, we could be one of these hubs, because we're going to need multiple hubs with the short distance that these vehicles fly currently, which is about 250 miles. But it was an interesting tour, but it shows what one county, in this case Monterey County, could do when they attract, in this case, attract development, and development that is really progressing quite well in their community. Also meeting quite a bit with Pacific Power these days, not only on the redundancy issues that in conversations with Bonneville Power Administration and Coos Curry Electric, but also on a smaller issue in Supervisor Borges's backyard, which is Kellogg Road Guard Station. As in the past, we've had quite a bit of issues in dumping there, and one of Supervisor Hemmingson's legacies was to put a guard shack out there, essentially that allowed a deterrent for people who wanted to dump out at Pacific Shores. It's been extremely effective, but finding somebody to be out there and live essentially in a trailer next to this area that is quite equipped with video surveillance is problematic, because we don't essentially have power. Pacific Power did not have a way to fund all the power lines that they essentially tore out after the last couple of years. But in talking with Pacific Power and now with Michael Bowen with the Coastal Conservancy, I think we have a path forward to fund this through a Coastal Conservancy grant. So I'm really hoping to expand these discussions in our natural resources committee with Supervisor Borges, and bring a proposal back to the full board to see if we can apply for this grant opportunity. At a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting, good to see the number of employments going up. It's pretty awesome. Also done our local transportation commission meeting, and also attended the collective bargaining training. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Short, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After our last meeting, I took off for our RCRC board meeting. While I was there, Maria Gallegos Herrera she's the director from the state USDA Rural Development section. She gave a program she gave a talk about a loan program, and she mentioned funding for wastewater treatment facilities and water storage facilities. I thought of you, Supervisor Howard, and the Tolowadani Nation. I know they're looking to develop, but I wanted to say that when you go on the website, there is a caveat that says it's for areas for 20,000 people or less. She wanted to harp on that and be sure and pass on the information that we need to apply anyway and put in the address, because it is areas, not necessarily the population of counties. So it's pretty easy to think that you're aced out of it because of that population cap, but that may not necessarily be so. So if they're still looking, you could have some hopeful avenue of funding for them. Also, Martha Guzman from the California EPA gave a presentation. And Supervisor Mike Kobzeff from Siskiyou County asked her why they're not monitoring the Klamath River as the dams come down, which was a pretty good question. She didn't have an answer, and I was able to dovetail off of that question and provide information about the other end of the river in our crab season, and how we were pulling pots with dead crab in them there in the area of the mouth of the Klamath. She seemed genuinely concerned, and we'll be setting up a call with me and Supervisor Kobzeff in the near future. Also there, we talked about the SB 90 mandate webinar that a lot of us attended. We're hopeful that this mandate that says that if the legislature passes something that requires the counties to do something, they have to back it up with funding. And if they don't, if there's an unfunded mandate, then we can appeal that, and then basically that law becomes null and void because there wasn't any financial backing to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how different counties and RCRC have successes in their test filings phase. We're going to, or RCRC and counties are going to do filings of lawsuits in that regard to try and see if they can get any action on getting these mandates repealed, I guess. So looking forward to see if we have any success on that. Also attended the Illinois Transportation Commission meeting with a couple of my colleagues here. Among other things, the milestone report was provided in that. Just wanted to say the milestone report is a progress of projects that are in progress or slated for the future. If anybody would like a copy of that report, I'd be happy to share it with you. I also participated in the collective bargaining training that was put on. I attended Housing and Services Subcommittee meeting and also the Cleanup Subcommittee meeting. Not much to pass on there. With the Cleanup Subcommittee, we felt it was necessary to meet off the tail end of the Supreme Court ruling off the Grants Pass case. So we'll be meeting again in a few months to see where we go from here. And lastly, for my family, is the second time we've been involved in the junior livestock auction at the fair. My kids raised some animals, and again, it really warms my heart to see so many people come together to teach and support and encourage our kids, from raising everything from steer down to quail and everything in between. These folks volunteer their time to teach our kids about every part of the animal, what's desirable at market, how best to feed them and care for them. And we saw just a bunch of business owners and individuals alike coming together and bidding very, very generous amounts for the animals that these kids were auctioning off, and encouraging them to keep putting in the effort, keep learning, and keep working hard. And I saw electricians, engineers, food distributors, realtors, plumbers, fishing vessels, repair shops, all kinds of people, you name it, and they came out to support our kids. My daughter had one of her turkeys bought by Christian Alexander, and I just wanted to give this example. When we went out to the dairy to drop off the turkey, there was already different pens of 3 chickens in their little holding area out in front of the office there. So it's obviously it's obvious they were big supporters. So I just wanted to say thank you to our community for supporting our kids. It shows that their hearts are in the right place, and that's focusing on our children. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Borges. And for myself, I just most of what I've attended was covered by several of the others. I've been doing a lot of work with staff over various issues of concern, both legislatively as well as within our county, working on economic development and other issues that we are looking at moving forward with. Part of that is on the agenda today. In addition, I want to thank those in the community that have expressed their condolences to my family and myself. We lost our matriarch, Eileen Brown, over this last week, and so I want to thank those that have reached out and have expressed their thanks and condolences to the family for their time and effort. And we shall move on. It is
Chair Wilson,
yes.
I forgot to report out on a meeting that I had with Natural Marine Fisheries Service and Cal Fish and Game on our ground fish issues. We had 10 folks from California Department of Fish and Wildlife and NOAA Marine Fisheries in our harbor here on August 8th, and our Crescent City Fishing Group Andrea Spahn, Steve Huber, and Blake Inscourt and myself met with a group to talk about the impacts from the groundfish closures this last year, and then what its impacts we're currently seeing with the reopening. And in preparing for the upcoming meeting in November, which will be held again in Spokane, they highly recommended that we continue to chase, but I don't think a lot of this opportunity to express a lot of our concerns and impacts fiscally into our economy would have happened directly with these individuals if we hadn't been chasing them around the state of California and other states. So just wanted to report out on that real quick. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our 10:25 time item, and this is for members of the public may address the board on matters